The house felt colder than it should have. Even with the furnace on and the sun pouring through the lace curtains, something about it made my skin prickle. Like the warmth had gone with her. Mom had been buried 3 days ago. And today, they were already reading the will. Caroline sat across from me on the floral-patterned love seat Mom had reupholstered last spring. She looked flawless. Fresh blowout. Manicured hands folded in her lap. A string of pearls around her neck like a symbol of gentle mourning. But there was something smug curled at the corners of her mouth. Like she already knew how this was going to go. I just think it's what Mom would have wanted, she said softly, glancing at our Aunt Denise. She always said I was the one with the roots. I said nothing. My fingers gripped the mug of lukewarm tea like it might anchor me, but nothing felt real anymore. Not the voices in the room, not the lawyer's rustling of papers, not even the fact that I was sitting in the same living room where Mom and I used to play cards and laugh over bad movies. Uncle Ron cleared his throat. Let's just get to it then. The will was read aloud in that dull, formal voice that makes even the most personal words sound sterile. He listed the jewelry, the car, some savings. Then he paused. Too long. And as for the house, he said, adjusting his glasses, per the updated testament dated 2 months before her passing, the house will pass in full to Caroline Martin. I blinked. My ears rang. What? I whispered. Sarah. Aunt Denise began, tilting her head like I was a skittish animal. No. I shook my head. That's not. Mom promised. She said we'd split everything. That it would be fair. She told me that. Denise offered a pinched smile. There was a change, a practical one. Caroline lives nearby. She helped more toward the end. It makes sense for her to keep the house. You've always been the more independent one. Independent. That word again. They always used it when they didn't want to say absent. Like going to college across the country, taking night shifts, to pay tuition, and calling every single Sunday wasn't enough. I looked at Caroline. She didn't flinch, just lifted one shoulder like it was out of her hands. Mom changed her mind, I guess. You guess? It's not a big deal, Sarah. It's just a house. A spark of something hot flared in my chest. Rage or grief, or both. I stood slowly. My things are still upstairs. Caroline blinked. Well, we've moved some of your boxes into the garage. I needed to start clearing space. Space for what? Her new life. Her Pinterest-worthy renovations. Her husband-to-be. I see, I said quietly. My hands were cold. Nobody tried to stop me as I walked to the front door. Not Caroline, not Aunt Denise, not Uncle Ron. The lawyer gave a faint nod, like I was dismissed, like I didn't belong. I stepped outside, feeling the door close behind me like the last nail in something. It wasn't just a house. It was my mother's house, and something deep inside me whispered, "This isn't over." The motel room smelled like bleach and dust. I'd left the window cracked open just to breathe something real, but the wind outside carried the kind of cold that didn't settle on your skin. It burrowed into your bones. I hadn't cried at the will reading. Not when they said she'd left everything to Caroline. Not when Caroline looked surprised, but not surprised enough. Not even when Aunt Denise patted my arm like I was a child who'd lost her toy. But that night, under the hum of a buzzing ceiling light and wrapped in stiff motel blankets, I cried like a child. The kind of sobbing that sounds like begging, even though no one's there to hear it. It wasn't just about the house. It was about everything. Every time I came home for the holidays and was made to feel like a guest. Every time Caroline was the one Mom called first. Not because she cared more, but because she was easier. Because she stayed. Because she didn't go chasing something bigger than the neighborhood block. And yet I chased for them. I was building a life I thought would make Mom proud. I worked late shifts, missed vacations, skipped parties, got my degree, took care of bills quietly, sometimes slipping a check into Mom's purse when she said she wasn't worried about the utilities. I wasn't absent. I was trying. And now I had nothing to show for it but a trash bag of my clothes in the back of my car and a sister who thought I was just being dramatic. I went back the next morning, not to fight, just to collect the rest of my things. Caroline wasn't even home. Her fiancé, Travis, I think his name was, let me in with a half-hearted smile and a mouth full of toothpaste. He barely looked at me. I think most of your boxes are in the garage, he mumbled, disappearing upstairs. I stood in the kitchen for a minute, alone. It still smelled like Mom's lotion, that soft lavender she kept by the sink. But everything else had started changing already. The magnets on the fridge were gone. The family photos were replaced with a printed renovation mood board and a calendar marked with contractor consult and interior designer meeting. My heart sank. The hallway to my old bedroom was blocked with a plastic sheet taped to the door frame. Painting. A note read in red marker. Like it was a crime scene. I found my things in the garage. Stacked, unlabeled, some of the boxes split open and crushed under the weight of others. One of them had water damage, probably from a leak in the roof no one ever fixed. As I crouched down to lift the box of old books, I saw it. Mom's Bible, the thick black leather one with gold-edged pages and her initials etched into the bottom, right corner. She never let us touch it as kids. Said it held everything that mattered. I reached for it slowly, brushing dust from the cover. The book was heavier than I remembered. I flipped it open, not expecting much, just looking for something to ground me. But between the worn pages of Psalms and Proverbs, something slipped out. An envelope. Cream-colored, folded neatly. My name, Sarah, written across the front, in Mom's handwriting. I froze. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I sat down right there on the cold concrete floor. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a letter, and behind the letter, several crisp sheets of paper folded twice, stamped with official markings. Legal documents. But first, I read the letter. My Sarah, if you're reading this, then something went wrong. I'm so sorry. I meant to make everything right before I passed, but I ran out of time. I know your aunt and uncle pressured me. I was scared and sick, and I didn't want to cause a fight. But I never filed those changes. I couldn't. Because this house, it was always meant to be yours. You took care of me in more ways than I ever said out loud. I saw the sacrifices you made. I kept track. You were never absent. You were always brave. Enclosed are the deed and the records you'll need. Don't let them take what's yours. I'm sorry for the silence. I only hope this letter breaks it. I love you always. Mom, I didn't cry. Not yet. I pressed the letter to my chest, closed my eyes, and for the first time since she died, I felt her. Not the version they painted over. Not the one who supposedly changed her mind at the last minute. But the real mom. The one who whispered late-night encouragements when I called exhausted. The one who packed care boxes when I was sick across the country. The one who knew I needed proof and left it hidden in the one place no one else would check. I flipped through the rest of the papers. The deed was still in her name. Clear and unfettered. No co-owner. No transfer. No recorded sale. Caroline hadn't inherited a house. She'd inherited a lie, and I had the truth. I didn't leave the garage right away. I sat there on the dusty concrete, surrounded by half-open boxes and forgotten holiday decorations, clutching the letter like it might vanish if I blinked too long. The weight of those pages was heavier than any argument Caroline could throw at me. Heavier than the smug dismissal in her voice. Heavier than the house itself. Mom had left me a map. Not revenge. Not quite. But a way back in. And I wasn't going to waste it. By the time I stood up, the numbness was gone. It was like something had unlocked inside me. A small click in the back of my throat that let my spine straighten. I looked around the garage one last time and gently slid the Bible and papers into my tote bag. I didn't need anything else. Was done collecting pieces of a life they tried to write me out of. Back at the motel, I scanned everything. Every page of the deed, every property tax receipt, even the note Mom had written, her slanted cursive shaky at the ends, but still, unmistakably hers. I uploaded backups to a secure cloud drive and stored hard copies in a fireproof folder I picked up from a drugstore down the street. Call it paranoia. Call it preparation. Either way, I wasn't going to be caught scrambling when this went public. But I didn't rush. I didn't call a lawyer that night. I didn't even tell my best friend what I'd found. Because this wasn't just about being right. It was about being ready. I needed to know what I was walking into. So I watched. I kept tabs on Caroline's socials. I scrolled her endless feed of before and after photos, interior design reels, and gushy captions about turning Mom's house into our forever home. She hashtagged it all under that around from grief to grateful. The comments made me sick. You deserve this. Your mom would be so proud. Glad you finally have a space that's yours. They didn't know. They didn't see the truth. But I did, and soon, so would everyone else. 2 days later, I drove to the county assessor's office. The woman behind the glass was polite, brisk. The kind of person who doesn't flinch at tear-streaked cheeks or trembling hands. She'd seen enough messy family paperwork to know not to ask. I just need to check property records, I said, placing the deed and documents gently on the counter. She raised a brow, took the paperwork, and tapped on her keyboard for a long moment. Then she frowned. There's no recorded transfer of ownership, she said. According to our records, the house is still under your mother's name. I nodded once. I'd like to initiate probate, I said. Another pause. Her fingers stopped moving. Do you have legal counsel? She asked gently. Not yet, I replied. But I will. She nodded and slid a packet of forms toward me. Start here. And bring the original death certificate when you're ready to file. I took the forms. My hands didn't shake. Not anymore. That night I parked outside the house. I didn't go in. I just sat across the street, engine off, lights low, watching through the bay window like I used to when I got home late from school, and Mom was making tea. Now Caroline was in there, laughing. She twirled in the living room, showing off a new, light fixture to her fiancé. He lifted her off the floor and kissed her neck. They looked like a real couple. Warm, happy, untouchable. But they were building a life on someone else's ground. On my mother's silence. On my absence. She thought the papers were enough. That, because she said it often enough. The house is mine. Mom gave it to me. It would become true. But Caroline never understood something about me. I don't fight loud. I fight clean. The first thing I did was open a file. Not a legal case. Not yet. A folder. One labeled Proof. Inside, I dropped in everything I had. The original deed, property tax receipts, photos of Mom's handwriting on the envelope, a high-res scan of the letter, the date and location of the will reading. Caroline's social posts bragging about owning the house. I added screenshots with timestamps. Even the captions. Especially the captions. Forever grateful to Mom for handing me the keys to my dream. Every wall in this house holds a memory, and now they're mine to protect. All said publicly. All while the deed still had Mom's name on it. It wasn't just arrogance. It was ammunition. The second thing I did was find a lawyer. I didn't go to some white shoe downtown firm with marble floors and secretaries who wore stilettos. I went to Margie Valdez, a probate attorney who ran her practice out of a repurposed Victorian and wore reading glasses on a beaded chain. She'd handled my friend's estate battle when a cousin tried to steal a condo out from under them. She didn't lose. Margie read the letter without a word. Her lips tightened at the corners. Then she read the deed, flipped it twice, and leaned back in her creaky chair. "Did your mother ever file an amended will?" she asked. "She tried," I said. "But according to her letter, she never submitted it." "Good," she muttered, tapping the page with a red-painted nail. "Because if that's true, and this was never legally processed, your sister's claim isn't just presumptuous, it's worthless." "She's already moved in," I whispered. Margie gave a humorless smile. "Then she's decorating a house that isn't hers." Caroline posted about a housewarming brunch that weekend. Pink and gold balloons, champagne flutes clinking in filtered morning light, mimosa towers on the granite island, Mom saved a year to afford. Every guest posed in the kitchen like they were part of something sacred. Every guest toasted her like she built this life from scratch. I watched it from my phone, alone in the library's reading room, sitting in the same cardigan I'd worn to the funeral. Not a single picture of Mom on display. Not one mention of me. It was like I never existed. I let her have that weekend. I let her feel secure. I let her host her event and open her registry gifts and giggle through influencer captions with perfect natural lighting. And on Monday morning, I filed the probate petition. Margie walked me through every line of the paperwork like it was sacred ritual. The death certificate, the deed, the letter, and my own formal statement. I, Sarah Lynn Cooper, being the direct daughter of the deceased, and having evidence that no legal transfer of property was conducted, petitioned the court to initiate probate for the estate located at 421 Brighton Avenue. Caroline called me 2 days later. It was the first time she'd dialed my number since the funeral. "Did you go to the courthouse?" Her voice wasn't angry. Not yet. It was edged with something worse. Fear. "I did," I said calmly. She laughed, sharp, shaky. "You're seriously going to contest Mom's will? Sarah, come on. You're going to make things ugly over a misunderstanding." "I'm not contesting the will," I said. "I'm just proving it wasn't executed." Silence. Then, "She wanted me to have it. You know that." She said it to all of us. But she didn't file anything, Caroline. She left me the deed. She left me the proof. Another pause, and then she snapped. You've always resented me. This is just another way for you to feel important. You couldn't wait to come back and take something you didn't earn. I already earned it, I said quietly. You just didn't notice. She hung up. That night, she deleted every post about the house. But I already had the screenshots, and Margie had already submitted the documents, and the county clerk had already stamped the first hearing date. Caroline didn't text. She didn't call again, but her fiancé did. It started with a message on Thursday. Travis. Hey, can we talk? Just us. Just us. Funny how just us hadn't existed when they were boxing my childhood up into the garage like old junk. Still, I replied. Me. I'm free after 5. What do you want? He picked a neutral spot, a coffee place in the Arts District, the kind with exposed brick, overpriced pour-overs, and too much acoustic guitar. He looked tired when he showed up. Less polished than I remembered. His collar was wrinkled, his hair a little wild, like sleep had been skipping their house lately. Caroline's losing it, he said, dropping into the chair across from me. I didn't answer, just stirred my coffee slowly, letting the spoon scrape the ceramic like a clock ticking between us. She didn't know, he continued. About the deed. About your mom never finalizing it. She really thought it was hers. And now? He hesitated. Now she's panicking. She's talking to lawyers. She's crying in the bathtub every night. She keeps saying you're trying to destroy her. I looked up, calm as the steam rising between us. I'm not trying to destroy her, I said. I'm just taking back what was never hers to begin with. He rubbed his face, then leaned in like he was about to offer some great revelation. Look, she's not great with boundaries, but she's not evil either. She's just always been the one who stayed, the one who got overlooked. I stared at him. Overlooked? She threw a party with Mom's wine glasses 2 weeks after the funeral. He shut up. I stood up. She can keep the Instagram captions, I said, but she doesn't get to keep the house. By the following week, Caroline's carefully curated online life began to glitch. The house updates slowed to a stop. Her bio changed. My forever. Home was gone. Replaced by vague motivational quotes and reposted reels about rising after setbacks. But I knew she hadn't told most people yet. Not her friends, not her yoga studio circle, not the Facebook moms she networked with about kitchen countertops and curated herb gardens. She was hoping it would blow over, hoping the legal dust would settle quietly, but it wouldn't. Margie had filed for public probate, which meant the petition was now searchable, accessible. And a few of the more curious people in Caroline's circle had already found it. My cousin Julia texted me late that night. Julia, wait, you're taking the house back? I thought it was Caroline's? Me. No, she lied. Julia. Holy shot. That was the thing about silence. People mistake it for weakness, until the receipts speak louder than words. The court date arrived quietly. I wore a navy dress. Margie told me not to look too formal, but not too soft either. Probate judges respect composure, not performance. Caroline showed up late. She wore white, not off-white, not cream. White, like she was going to her own bridal shower. The courtroom was small. Old wood, gray walls, the faint hum of ancient fluorescent lights above us. The judge looked like he'd seen 100 families like ours in just the last year. And he probably had. Margie did the talking. She laid out the documents one by one. The deed, the dates, the lack of transfer. She included the letter, but only for context. Legally, it was the paperwork that mattered. Caroline's lawyer, a slick guy in tan suede shoes, tried to argue intent. He said Mom's verbal affirmations, her last-minute will change, and Caroline's role as primary caretaker constituted reasonable grounds for ownership. Margie didn't flinch. Intent means nothing without action, she said. There was no filed change, no signed deed transfer, no probate filing from the other party. My client holds the deed. She holds standing. That's the law. The judge nodded slowly, fingers steepled. I'll review the filings. Written decision in 2 weeks, he said, already reaching for the next case on the docket. Caroline didn't look at me when she walked out. But I looked at her. And for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel invisible. The waiting was worse than the hearing. The courthouse had been quiet, formal, full of structure. But this waiting period was a vacuum, a heavy stillness that pressed against my chest every time my phone buzzed. Every morning for those 2 weeks, I checked my email before brushing my teeth. I couldn't help it, and every night I reread the letter Mom had left me. Sometimes twice. Not for legal clarity, not for strategy, for her voice. Because the closer we got to judgment, the more distant she felt. I hadn't expected that part. That even in doing exactly what she'd told me to, I'd start second-guessing everything. Was I honoring her or making her memory messy? Was reclaiming the house justice or revenge? The questions lived in the pit of my stomach, but I didn't stop. Caroline didn't reach out, but I heard things from Julia, from a cousin who worked at the same salon as one of her bridesmaids. She's not handling it well. She canceled the backsplash install. She told everyone it was a miscommunication, that you're just confused and lashing out. She's calling it a grieving spiral. Yours. It was funny. She'd erased me from the story, then blamed me for ruining the ending. Then came the voicemail. It arrived on a Tuesday night, 2 days before the ruling. I didn't recognize the number, but the transcription preview caught my eye. Hey, it's me, Caroline. I know you probably won't pick up, but I hit play. Her voice was tight, flat, like someone holding an emotion through locked teeth. Look, I'm not going to beg. I don't understand why you're doing this. You have your degrees, your job, your whole life out there. And now you want to come back and take this? From me? Pause. You don't know what it's like to be the one who stayed, to hear her cry at night, to hold her hand when the pain was bad. You left. I was here. Another pause. Shorter. Sharper. If you really think Mom would have wanted us to fight over this house, then I guess I didn't know her as well as I thought. Click. I listened to it 3 times. Not because it hurt, because of what she didn't say. She didn't deny the truth. She didn't mention the deed, or the missing paperwork, or the will she said Mom definitely changed. She didn't mention the letter. She just talked about pain, as if hurt alone was proof of ownership. But pain isn't currency, and silence isn't a receipt. The court's email came that Thursday at 10:42 a.m. Subject line: In re Estate of Diane Cooper. Judgment Filedi didn't open it right away. Stared at it. let it pulse in my inbox like a heartbeat. Then I clicked and read and exhaled. The court finds that no legal deed transfer was executed prior to the decedent's death, that the house in question remains part of the original estate, and that petitioner Sarah Lynn Cooper, as legal next of kin and co-heir, is entitled to initiate probate of the property. It wasn't a headline. It wasn't a moment of triumph, but it was real. I forwarded the decision to Margie. Then I closed. My laptop sat back in the motel chair I'd grown too used to, and stared at the wall for a long time. Not smiling, not crying, just breathing. That night, I drove by the house again. Only this time, I parked. The porch light was off. The windows dim. No music, no laughter, no Caroline. There was a for sale sign on the lawn, and a faint paper taped inside the front. Window, no trespassing, property in probate, legal action pending. I stepped out of the car, stood at the curb. The house was quiet, like it was holding its breath. And maybe for the first time in weeks, I let go of mine. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. The courthouse ruling had been official. The for sale sign had confirmed it. She was supposed to be gone, already moved on, already rewriting her story somewhere else with a new kitchen island and a fresh zip code. But when I walked up the steps to retrieve my mailbox key from the realtor's lockbox, I saw her car, parked crooked, engine off, driver's side window half down like she meant to leave, but hadn't. I hesitated on the last step, one hand gripping the railing like it might steady something inside me. Then the front door opened, and Caroline stood there. No pearls this time. No curated lip color. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and her sweatshirt hung off one shoulder like she'd slept in it. Her eyes were puffy, not from crying, but from the kind of exhaustion that sits behind your face and refuses to leave. "You came," she said. Not like a question. "I needed my key," I replied evenly. The realtor said it was still inside. She stepped aside without a word. I walked past her. The house was different, not in layout, but in air. The sharp edge of self-congratulation was gone. The aroma of freshly cut lemons and designer candles had been replaced by something stale, like packing tape and dust. There were boxes everywhere, some open, some sealed, some half-labeled and slouched like they'd given up halfway through being useful, and in the middle of the living room, the same one where we'd played Monopoly, on the carpet as kids, sat Mom's favorite armchair, the blue one with the worn armrest she used to rub with her thumb when she was thinking. It was the only piece of furniture that hadn't moved. Caroline followed me in and closed the door, behind her. "I'm not going to fight anymore," she said softly. I didn't answer. "I mean it." Her voice cracked a little. "The judgment was clear. It's yours. I know that now." "You knew it before," I said. "You just didn't want it to be true." She sank into the armchair like her bones had given out. I stood in the doorway, arms folded. "I spent so long trying to prove I was the one who mattered more," she murmured. "Like if I stayed, if I took care of everything, if I made her proud in all the little ways you didn't, then I'd be enough. I thought, maybe if I had the house, I'd win." "You think this was a competition?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Wasn't it always?" The silence that followed was heavier than anything she'd said, because a part of me remembered it too. The hidden scoring, the subtle comparisons. Who called first? Who showed up? Who left? Who stayed? But that wasn't the truth either. We weren't rivals. We were daughters. and one of us had been handed a script while the other had to write hers in pencil, over erasures, over time, over sacrifice no one saw. I finally stepped forward, May. Not kicking you out today, I said. You have a few more weeks. The realtor knows. She looked up, eyes red-rimmed, not defensive, just raw. I didn't read the letter, she said suddenly. The one Mom left you. I didn't think. You did, can I? I paused, then reached into my bag. I didn't hand her the original, that lived in a sealed envelope in a fireproof box now. But I had a copy. I always carried a copy. She took it with shaking hands. I watched her read it. Her lips moved silently, through each line. Her brow furrowed, then trembled. Her shoulders curled in like the words pressed down on her spine. When she finished, she didn't speak. She just folded it gently and placed it on the armrest. She loved you too, she said. Didn't answer that, because I didn't need to. I left the house quietly, the mailbox key in my pocket, the deed soon to be transferred. The past still aching, but no longer heavy. Behind me, Caroline sat in silence, not defeated, not vindicated, just still, and for the first time in a long time, so was I. The house was mine again, not just on paper. Not just by law, it was mine in silence, in sunlight through the east-facing windows, in the smell of old floorboards and lavender soap. Caroline moved out 2 weeks later. No fights, no dramatic standoff. Just boxes stacked into a moving van, and a polite, cold nod when she handed over the spare key. She didn't say goodbye, but that was okay, because I didn't need her parting words. I already had Mom's. I didn't move in right away. The rooms felt hollow, echoing with conversations that had ended too soon and memories that pressed up against the walls like shadows waiting to be named. So I came during the day, one room at a time, the attic first, then the pantry, then the linen closet where Mom used to hide Christmas gifts wrapped in newspaper. I painted the guest room the same shade of soft blue Mom had once picked for the upstairs bathroom. Said it reminded her of the sky over the lake. I donated the furniture Caroline left behind, but I kept the floral dish set from the hutch. I found a scarf of Mom's in the coat closet, still holding the faintest trace of her perfume, and hung it over the mirror in the hallway. It wasn't about restoring things. It was about remembering what never left. A few months later, I hosted the first dinner, not a housewarming. Just dinner. Julia came. My best friend Megan brought wine. My co-worker from the library offered to bring dessert and showed up with a warm peach crumble that tasted like summer. We didn't toast anything. We just ate and laughed and played music. Too loud, and let the dog track dirt across the kitchen tile. It felt like breathing again. After they left, I stood in the doorway alone, staring out at the porch light I'd replaced that morning. It flickered softly, like it had always been there, and for the first time since the funeral, since the letter, the lie, the courtroom. I cried. Not from grief, from peace. Months later, I got a letter, handwritten. No return address. I recognized the script. It was from Caroline. Sarah, I don't know how to apologize the right way. I think part of me always knew the house wasn't mine. I just wanted something to feel like it was. I'm not proud of how I handled things. I was angry. I was hurting. But so were you. I hope one day we'll find a way to remember her together, without a property line between us. I'm starting over. I hope you're healing. See, I folded the letter and placed it between the pages of Mom's Bible right where mine had once been. Now, when people ask, I don't say I won the house. I just say, I came home, and somehow, this time, it stayed mine.